Welcome to our webinar, and we are going to jump into life extensions, new areas of research. What we did to come up with these topics, we really looked at the year of 2025 and hot topics that we felt just really stood out with our customers, and we're bringing some of those topics to you. So, keeping a youthful gut, supporting healthy hair, and this will cover healthy hair for men and women, as well as ways to manage stress easier, more specifically, occasional stress. So, we're going to kind of weed out acute stress, occasional stress, chronic stress, and we're going to kind of hover in that area of occasional stress. So first, let's talk about maintaining a healthy microbiome for longevity. So we know that growing evidence demonstrates the key role of the gut microbiome and how that plays a role in health as we age. Aging is characterized by distinct changes in the gut microbiome. And looking at these age-related changes, we're seeing a reduction in more of the healthy type of bacteria, and we're seeing an enrichment in the pathogenic or more opportunistic bacteria. Now, we can talk about lifestyle that we think is driving some of this. We know that stress, chronic stress, which we'll talk about our last topic, is a key driver of inflammation. And we do see negative changes in the gut microbiome from stress. Of course, processed foods, specifically ultra processed foods. We're also seeing medications that relates to really compromising the balance of the healthy types of bacteria and the pathogenic bacteria, and so many other things that can cause what we would call or term dysbiosis. But we also know it's a normal part of aging. And although it's normal, it can trigger more harmful local as well as systemic inflammation, which is commonly associated with an increase in frailty with age and other age-related pathologies, such as metabolic and neurodegenerative diseases. Now, that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is when you look at long-lived individuals, when you look at centenarians, they exhibit signature features similar to those in young individuals related to their gut microbiome, kind of the balance of the bacteria. So you see in longer lived individuals more of your positive or healthier bacteria like Akkermansia bifidobacterium, and they have a low abundance of potential inflammatory bacteria. So the focus that life extension is giving to this is really identifying how can we support a healthy gut microbiome in aging individuals, and how do we bring back that balance? And what we found is, you can see, we are going to review 3 probiotics. 2 were studied together. The first 2 that's listed there, lactobacilli probiotics, and 1 postbiotic. And these have been shown to help shift the gut toward a more youthful state, supporting healthy aging. Now, to understand this, I'm going to take you on a journey, so just bear with me. We are going to go back to biology, and some of this you may or may not have learned in the past, but we're going to take a deep dive into the microbiome just so we can understand how this bacteria is classified, because I'm setting the foundation for us to be able to understand the study results with these bacteria. So let's go back to looking at how bacteria are classified. And so you have the kingdom, and similar, you have animal kingdom, plant kingdom, and the same applies here. After kingdom, then you have the phylum. And the reason we're kind of pulling out phylum, because we do see changes in the phylum from the probiotics in research. And then further down, you have genus, species, strain. And so I'm just going to go back. Well, no, we can keep going forward, because I like to show this slide. And this is helping you to even just understand when you're looking at research, when you're reading about different bacteria and how they can be helpful. And Life Extension has done hopefully a good job educating our customers on looking for strain-specific bacteria. And what you see here is you have your genus, your species, and looking for that strain, because those strains, the exact strain is where we're seeing health-specific benefits. There are strains that support mood. There are strains that have been shown to help specifically with occasional constipation. There are certain strains that target heart health. There are certain strains that support a healthy liver. And so when you're looking at probiotics, the field is really expanding. And so when we're going through this information, we're specifically highlighting strains of probiotics. And, we have this picture here of the dogs. Even within the same species, there can be slight genetic variations. Just like different breeds of dogs, there are different strains of probiotics. Now, why is this important? And I think I kind of went through most of that, because certain healthy aging probiotic strains can increase beneficial phylum. That was right under kingdom, that at that level. And what we like about that, when you are supporting healthy bacteria really upstream, then there's a trickle down effect downstream. And then we're also seeing that the specific strains that Life Extension is highlighting also can decrease pathogenic phylum. Now let's look at this study. This is looking at those first two strains of bacteria, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. What we love about this is it included 97 healthy seniors, average age 81. This is groundbreaking, because it's hard to find research in the aging population. Often you may see 75 or 80. That's the cutoff for inclusion criteria to be eligible to participate in a clinical trial. So the researchers specifically wanted healthy seniors. These two strains of bacteria were studied together, taken at the same time, and these were isolated from healthy older individuals. So 5 billion CFUs, or colony-forming units, duration 24 weeks. Just note that what I'm presenting, these are, it's one clinical study that was split into two separate publications with different outcomes. So that's why you see two references down at the bottom left of the screen, because the researchers conducted the big study and then they wrote it up in two different papers. 24-week duration. They did a gut microbiome analysis. This is something that's available to all of you. Sometimes we're starting to hear people to say, I did a stool analysis, and you're able to analyze your gut microbiome. They also looked at short chain fatty acids, which are byproducts of bacteria metabolism, as well as inflammatory markers. I put a note there, some participants only completed 3 months. This study was conducted right around COVID time, and so some of the participants didn't complete the full study. So we're going to look and break down each of these sections one by one, and I'm going to attempt to highlight why these results are important. And now you can see why we kind of gave you that high level overview, because they did a stool analysis. And what's important is what the researchers found when analyzing the microbiome in the stool. So first, we saw an increase in Actinobacteria phylum. And let's look at what that means. Actinobacteria, this downstream leads to bifidobacteria. We know that bifidobacteria declines with age, and it's associated with health benefits such as improved glucose support or glucose control, decreased liver inflammation, DNA protection. We look at our next result, an increase in Verrucomicrobia phylum, that's a hard one, leading to more of that Akkermansia genus. Now, why does that matter? So Akkermansia is one that you're starting to see. There's even certain opportunities to take this directly, but we are working upstream and we see downstream that it can support Akkermansia. This is all about healthy gut barrier support. So you think about gut barrier and why that's important. Well, that's important because when you have a disrupted gut barrier, think to yourself, leaky gut, then that can cause inflammation in the body. We're also seeing it linked with autoimmune disease. We're seeing it linked with allergies. So we want to support the healthy gut barrier. And it's considered, this Akkermansia is considered to be a biomarker for healthy aging. And this is one that we saw that was maintained in those centenarian individuals having an abundance of Akkermansia. So we saw improvements there with those two probiotic strains. We also see that Akkermansia is correlated with metabolic health. Overweight individuals found improvements in insulin resistance, blood lipids, as well as body fat composition. Now, moving on to our next result, let's go back to the increase in beneficial bacteria section. I just do want to highlight increases in lactobacillus species as well. We're all very familiar with that. That's the form, the lactic acid bacteria that you find in many of your fermented foods, such as yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut. Any type of lactic acid fermentation, you will have an increase in those good bacteria. The researchers also saw a decrease in the opportunistic bacteria. And again, this is when they analyze the stool of the participants in the study. So why do we want this bacteria decreased? We know that aging can result in an increase in this pro-inflammatory proteobacteria and a loss of bifidobacteria. So we don't want there to be an imbalance where we have too much of the opportunistic bacteria. Now, our last section, when we look at the results in the probiotic group, we saw an increase in short-chain fatty acids. Again, those are the byproducts of your bacteria metabolizing its substrate. And what's most important here, in my opinion, on this screen is a decrease in significant reduction in inflammatory markers from baseline. So a decrease in C-reactive protein, we know that is our non-specific marker of overall inflammation in the body. A decrease in TNF alpha, IL-6, IL-8. It's just really great that there was a decrease in these inflammatory cytokines in this study. Now looking at the next, so that was with those first two probiotic strains. Now we're looking at the third probiotic that was listed, and this is Lactobacillus plantarum ECGC with all the numbers. Again, you have to be very specific. And we saw in this study clinically improvement in lipid biomarkers. And this is including total cholesterol, LDL, as well as ApoB. So we included information on this particular probiotic because we have the clinical research. And then the last one at the bottom is that postbiotic. Now, postbiotics are heat-treated bacteria, so they are not alive. However, we do know that the cell wall and different components on your postbiotics can still cause a positive effect in the body. And what we're seeing with this, and we kind of included it, we do not have any human clinical studies with this postbiotic, but we do have preclinical studies showing that it increased lifespan and ameliorated age-related leaky gut inflammation and improved cognitive function in older obese mice. So that is one that we are keeping our eyes on as well because of the promising preclinical studies. Now, with all that said, who would benefit from these probiotics? It's anyone who wants to support a youthful gut, those wanting to support healthy aging and longevity through a healthy microbiome. And I wanted to highlight that there is a fecal test, a stool analysis, GI 360, that Life Extension offers. And it does, it's a stool test for dysbiosis, pathogens, as well as digestion. So when I read the study, I was thinking, I should at least let our participants know that if this is something you're interested in testing, the test is available. I did take the test one time, but I was pregnant, so I'm not quite sure. I know pregnancy really changes your microbiome, so I probably should have the test again, but very insightful information that you can gain from a stool analysis. Now let's move on to our next exciting topic that I'm sure all of you were waiting on, healthy hair growth. And to get us started here, there are two things I want to say. One is I always like to set sort of the reasonable expectations with what you can expect with any nutrient that you're adding in to try to support healthy hair growth. If you are someone that is, maybe if you're a man, you're already bald, you've been bald for a while now. This is not a miracle hair regrowth, but it's really helping to slow down hair loss and in men and women. So first, let's look at how hair grows, the hair growth cycle. Our hair is not all synchronized in the same phase for growth cycle. Otherwise, we'd all be bald for a couple of months every cycle. But at any given time, the hairs are going through this cycle. Usually, most hair is in that first phase that you see, which is the anagen or the growth phase. while approximately 10% is on the other side of the screen, the telogen phase, or we call that the resting phase. So again, the anagen phase is the growth phase. The telogen phase is the resting phase. That's going to be important when we start looking at our study results. And then you have this middle phase, the catagen phase, where the follicles start to leave the dermal matrix, and we've got that new hair follicle going. So when we look at the timing here, the anagen phase usually lasts about 2 to 6 years. And then the telogen phase lasts about 5 to 6 weeks. But again, every hair follicle, this is all kind of, each of your hairs are kind of on their own cycle. So they are not all of the hairs are on this cycle, but the active hair growth phase represents 85 to 90% of the hair follicles in healthy people. So now we have that foundation. Let's talk about what can go wrong. And we'll start with androgenic alopecia. Let's get some definitions here. So when we think of androgenic, the first thing you want to think is andro, which is short for androgens. So your androgens in your body, these are hormones that are involved with growth. And that's going to be like your testosterone, that's going to be your DHT. These are known, and DHEA, these are known as androgens. So this is hair loss due to hormones. And this happens in men and women, male pattern balding, female pattern balding, the most common type of hair loss. And it affects about 80% of men and 40% of women by the age of 50, female pattern hair loss. And so what's happening here is you're having a shortening of that growth phase and a lengthening of the time in that dormant phase or the shedding phase, which means it takes longer for the hair to start growing back after it sheds in the course of the normal hair cycle. We also see with this that the hair follicle itself changes, and that's what you're seeing here. The reduced diameter, reduced length, reduced pigmentation. So we have a shrinking and producing a shorter, thinner hair shaft. This is actually called follicular miniaturation. And so what results? You have kind of this thicker pigmented hair that's replaced by shorter, thinner, non-pigmented hair. And so that's what's happening here. Now, we know that there are other contributing factors, could be stress, nutritional status, other medical conditions. So that's one piece of it, but this is mainly due to androgens. And many people are using topical treatments. Some of you may be familiar with the shampoos or the ointments or the drops, minoxidil. This is FDA approved, but it can be costly. And for some people, it may not work. It only works, and one study showed that it only works in about 40% of patients. And so without intervening or without intervention, then we know that there's about a 10% rate per year in loss. And so what we're trying to do again here is slow down that loss. Now, this is just a slide. It's more of a reference slide showing what this looks like in women versus men. I think we've kind of know what male pattern balding looks like in men. In women, it's where we're starting to see a widening of your parts. loss of ponytail volume, and progressive hair shedding. This is not something that it happens overnight, because we will talk about another type of hair loss in women where you're seeing kind of this sudden onset of hair loss. This is something that is progressive. So we're going to talk about some solutions. Specifically right now, we're looking at men. So this black rice extract, prickly pear flower extract, these are two nutrients that have been shown to be beneficial in men. And what we're seeing with the prickly or the black rice and prickly pear combination, they have been shown to support healthy hair growth. They also have been shown to inhibit an enzyme that turns your testosterone into a more active form of testosterone known as DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which is responsible for the male pattern balding. So we are kind of stopping that conversion or intervening in that conversion. So one study with the black rice and prickly pear flower combination, randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study, 86 men with mild to moderate androgenic alopecia. So again, this is our study in men. They used 250 milligrams of this combination of the black rice and the prickly pear flower. And this was once per day after lunch or dinner for 6 months. And the results, the participants saw improved total hair density, improved growing and thicker hair, improved hair life cycle. And the researchers also noted improved anagen growth phase up to 80%. So it was initially 68.6% of the hairs in that anagen growth phase, and it increased to 80.3%. So more of those hair follicles were in the growing phase. And our next nutrient that many of you are familiar with is saw palmetto fruit extract. And we know, again, saw palmetto is one in preclinical studies inhibits that enzyme that we talked about earlier, 5-alpha reductase, that inhibits testosterone and DHT from binding to those androgen receptors, those binding sites. And let's look at a clinical study with the saw palmetto oil. Saw palmetto oil, we're bringing our women back into the picture here. This has been studied or was studied in men and women. So just note that we are highlighting the saw palmetto oil for men and women, randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial, 40 individuals with mild to moderate androgenic alopecia. They were given 100 milligrams of saw palmetto oil or placebo for 16 weeks. In the study, just to give you a breakdown, there were 28 men and 12 women. And the saw palmetto oil, you can see the standardization there, 2 to 3% beta cytosterol and 85% total fatty acids. So the endpoints, we looked at. Primary endpoint was the hair count. So there was a dermatologist that examined their hair through a hair comb test to see how many hairs come out when you comb the hair, as well as hair pull test, which they take like some hair, a group of hair, and they pull it and they see how many hairs come out. So it's nice to have just some objective values here. There was also self-perceived tests. And these are subjective, of course, but the participants were able to rate, whether they felt like their hair growth was improving. Hair growth satisfaction scale as well as an assessment of hair growth index. And then the secondary measurements were of photographic assessment score, looking at hair density, thickness, anagen telogen ratio using this high-powered camera. We'll see a picture of it in another slide, looking specifically at a study in women, but a high-powered camera to look at the scalp and look at the hair follicles. And so what the researchers saw: reduced hair shedding, improved total hair density, and improved serum DHT. So we figured this is working. And we had the preclinical study showing that the saw palmetto works by targeting those DHT and testosterone receptors, and we saw an improvement in the DHT, meaning that DHT level decreased. There was also reduced hair shedding by up to 29% from the baseline. That was conducted by those dermatologists with that hair comb and hair pull scores. So again, they conducted those assessments at baseline, and then again at the end of the study. Remember, it's a 16-week study, and there was an improvement, reduced hair shedding. There was an increase in hair density, statistically significant, as well as that decrease in DHT. Now, looking at another cause of hair loss, we're specifically focusing on women here, which is telogen effluvium. Telogen effluvium. This is an acute, excessive hair loss in which more than 15% of hairs are in a resting phase. So again, greater than 15% of your hairs would need to be in a resting phase, which will give you this, which would put you into having hair loss due to telogen effluvium. This is temporary and reversible, unlike androgenic alopecia. This is something that you see after pregnancy. You see after stressful events, trauma, illness, dietary deficiencies, like you're not getting enough protein, you're not getting enough fatty acids, you're not getting enough zinc or iron or vitamin D, some of those foundational nutrients. This could be hair loss due to a medication that you're taking. And it typically occurs abruptly. It can affect women of any age. So we're not talking about age-related hair loss. And it typically occurs 2 to 3 months after the stressful condition. So I wanted to kind of really give you that big description as we start looking at the solution. Ceramides. So given that women, they're limited solutions, it can be very distressing. So ceramides are a solution that have been researched with telogen effluvium. So first, what are ceramides? These are biologically active lipids produced within the body and obtained through the foods we eat. They're found in our cell membranes, and we also know that they're contained in a hair strand. Give me just a moment. So we have a study, phytoceramides, clinical study with hair benefits, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, multi-center study, 66 women, and they received 30 milligrams of gluten-free wheat ceramide extract or placebo for 84 days. And so when we look at our research results, we're looking at outcomes at 56 days and 84 days. And what you're seeing on the screen, that's an example of that photo trichogram. And this can be done in your dermatologist's office. And this is where they can take those high-powered, really focused in accurate pictures to evaluate hair cycle, hair density, hair diameter, and growth, as well as scalp sebum content. Let me just go back to this slide. They also did, again, that hair pull test and clinical scoring. Oh, and then there was a subgroup analysis. And when we get to our results, I'll kind of explain the subgroup analysis in postmenopausal women. So the results with the ceramides, a 48% decrease in hair fall after 12 weeks. That was from that hair pull test from baseline. And what's nice is I put it as a sub-bullet, about a 15% decrease from week 4. So although it's this 12 weeks results, we saw some improvement starting sooner. Up to 90% of women taking the ceramide extract reported improved hair condition, healthier, grows faster, fewer hairs lost, and split ends. The problem I'm having. Less greasy and improved hair quality. Now, let's talk about this postmenopausal group. Let me go back to the postmenopausal group. Life Extension was able to get the raw data from the study. So I wanted to point this out because when you go to reference 9 for the hair and you're looking at this research, you're not going to see this subgroup analysis, but this is something that was conducted and calculated in-house by our team of researchers, where we pulled out the postmenopausal women, their data from the study. And we saw that even in this group, that they have a more difficult time kind of rebounding when they have this acute hair loss. And so we wanted to see, okay, in the postmenopausal group, were they experiencing similar results? And that is something that that we looked at, the natural, and there wasn't no improvement in placebo postmenopausal subgroup, but we saw improvement in the participants who were taking the ceramides, which is nice. We also saw, again, what we're looking at is just some of the graphs and the data, improved hair growth, and that's that anagen, the growth phase, to the telogen, the shedding phase. So an improvement in that ratio, up 24% improvement from baseline, and up 12.5% improvement from the placebo. The ceramides group also achieved normal levels of hair loss by the end of the study and significantly improved proportion of growing hair. So just going here, who would benefit? For men, that's where we have that black rice, prickly pear, cactus flower, saw palmetto oil extracts. And then for women, you may want to consider the wheat-derived ceramides, and again, the saw palmetto oil extract, because we did see that there was improvements in both men and women with the saw palmetto oil extract. So bear with me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment. My slides are progressing on their own, and that's not what I want to happen. So I'm just trying to see if I can turn that setting off. Just bear with me to see if I can turn off that setting. I'm not seeing that that's possible. So we have one more section and then we can start our questions. And this is all about GABA, supporting GABA. So we talked about occasional stress, And GABA is helping to support that. So some of us feel this way, some may not, but this is what most people feel. Life is coming at you from many directions, not just in the workplace. It can just be just that if you are a busy homemaker, if you are a busy grandma trying to help out with your grandkids, grandma or grandpa, life can just be busy. People, it can be very demanding. And so we talk about stress. I just want to give some definitions here because GABA is, when we look at the research, is focused specifically on occasional or episodic stress. So acute stress, this is short-term reaction to a stressful event. So we're talking about a sudden traffic accident, something that kind of happens, you recover. Acute stress it's not all bad either. Sometimes there's acute, I guess, positive stress. So you have your stress, your fight or flight response, and then you recover and everything is all good. Chronic stress, we're going to go to the bottom. Lots of storm clouds. A chronic stress is a prolonged state of stress, toxic, unresolvable relationship problems, ongoing issues that just seem inescapable. But then when we look at occasional stress, this is something that occurs in a series. It's the experience of acute stress on a regular basis. But it doesn't have the same pathophysiology, but can have a negative impact on physical and on mental health. So we're going to be focusing in on episodic stress, and I'll give you some examples. Every time it's time for me to prepare for a webinar, this is, I know it's coming, but I know that the event is going to end and I'll be happy and and the stressful moment will be over. A series of doctor's appointments, high stress situations, like, around the holidays, you're going to have to fly, and flying for you is a very stressful thing. Then that is what we would call an episodic stress, because we know it's going to occur again. You anticipate that stress. And this type of stress also is commonly seen in disorganized individuals who tend to take on too many responsibilities or struggle with time management. And so those individuals often find themselves caught in a cycle of recurring stressful situations, and you feel overwhelmed. So the solution, GABA. GABA is our primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in the body, and it plays an important role in calming and relaxing the body. And the GABA that we are specifically excited about is a GABA produced through natural lactobacillus fermentation. And so it's a naturally produced GABA. And it can help to relieve some of the feelings of stress without the need for anti-anxiety medications. So really just maintaining a balance between the nervous system. Now, this GABA is working in the gut. And this slide is just showing that connection from your gut to your brain. The gut-brain axis is what we called it. And this is, we all know, or some of you may have heard, the gut being called the second brain is made of more than 100 million nerve cells. And this is our enteric nervous system in our gut. And it can send signals to the brain that can affect mood. And this fermented or naturally derived GABA shows that it can have an impact and support brain health by working through the gut. There are numbers, and the reason we're kind of explaining this because there are a number of studies reported that when you take GABA, it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. But there's evidence of the presence of a GABA transporter in the blood-brain barrier. So this demonstrates that, hey, maybe this is possible. So what we once thought wasn't possible with GABA, and the idea that you have to take a GABA precursor may not be necessarily 100% accurate, that GABA may be able to get into the brain. And that's what we're seeing, that it's working through the enteric nervous system. So our first study, we're going to look at two studies: an induced stress study where the researchers they mimic an episodic stressful situation. And then we're going to look at a sleep study because we find that this GABA has been shown to support sleep. And then we will open up the floor for questions. So this study is a randomized, single-blind, placebo-controlled crossover study, 63 adults, and they were given 100 milligrams of naturally fermented GABA before completing a cycle of math, so arithmetic questions, and target detection tasks. We were trying to create a stressful experience, and there were 2 experimental days. And again, it's a crossover study. So there was a washout between those experimental days. So when you have a crossover study, it means that the group comes in, they are given either the GABA or placebo. They take their test, then there's a washout, and then you come back and they cross you over. So if in the first session you received GABA, in the second session, you would receive that placebo and vice versa. So each person can kind of serve as their own control. So I really like crossover studies. And they measured brain waves with EEG, and they gave them a questionnaire, a mood questionnaire, and a visual analog scale just to assess mood. And the research, there was a post-stress drop in some of the brain waves, and that post-stress drop that you typically see when people are dealing with lots of stress or they have experienced a stressful event, that did not happen at 30 minutes compared to placebo. And that indicated a protective effect of GABA from the stress-induced task. On the questionnaire, the GABA group found a lesser reduction in feeling caused by stress scores. So those scores where it says this was feeling caused by stress, or this event feeling was caused by stress, there was a lesser reduction in that. And then reduce the decrease in brain activity and mood dip that occurs after mental load task. So that we saw some improvements there in our simulated stress study. And then just lastly, looking at our sleep study with GABA, another crossover design, randomized double blind. And so this one only had 10 adults. So we acknowledge that the sample size was low, but you can get more power with the crossover design. Again, 100 milligrams of GABA 30 minutes before going to bed. 1 week with the GABA, 1 week washout, meaning no GABA, and then you switch your treatment. Again, that's your crossover design with the EEG, sleep measurements, assessment, and then another questionnaire. And the results: reduction in sleep latency, that's your time to fall asleep. So that was reduced from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. That's great. We all love it when our head hits the pillow and we fall asleep. So if we can reduce that time, that's fantastic. So there was a reduction in sleep latency, a significant improvement in non-REM sleep time. Non-REM sleep, that is that's kind of your like sleep phase. You want more of deep sleep. And let me make sure I'm saying that correctly, because I think I said it wrong. So significant improvement in non-REM, meaning there was an improvement in deep sleep. Non-REM, and REM stands for rapid eye movement. When you're in the REM phase of sleep, that is your light sleep. You can easily be woken up in that sleep phase. Non-REM is considered deep sleep. There was significant improvement in deep sleep. There was also significantly improved awake, not drowsy feelings after sleeping, and improved overall sleep quality without causing drowsiness. So this was not, they didn't feel drowsy the next day. And again, that was 100 milligrams of GABA 30 minutes before sleep. And concluding our summary, I put this summary slide here. Again, you have the slides in the handout section for the webinar, but I also included suggested dosing. So when we're looking at those probiotics and the postbiotic for keeping your gut youthful, that blend is 155 milligrams. I have the specific dosing for the combination of black rice and prickly pear. That study, that was 250 milligrams, 100 of the saw palmetto and the phytoceramides dosing. And then simple ways to ease stress, 100 to 200 milligrams of GABA. One thing to note here with the phytoceramides, that phytoceramides can be delivered in an oil base or in a powder base. The powder base is 30 milligrams. So you may see, depending on the preparation, you may see a different dosing. And with that said, we thank you for your participation. I just wanted to feature our Learn tab on lifeextension.com. You can scan that QR code to find health quizzes, our wellness blogs, our magazines, our health protocols, lots of health content. Since you are the customer that loves to learn, we just want to direct you to the many places where you can learn. We also want you to check out our wellness YouTube channel, where we have some of our shows there, the Real Wellness Show with Dr. Michael Smith, our Director of Education, and our Live Foreverish podcast. Thank you. Thank you for joining our education event, our webinar, the first webinar for 2026. And we hope to see you back. Have a great day.